I'm Shaheen Cheyenne, and this is Win the Day with James Whittaker.
Welcome back to Win the Day. Today we're joined by Shaheen Cheyenne, a dynamic serial entrepreneur and the visionary founder of Podcast Cola. As a prominent thought leader in the podcasting space, Shaheen has made appearances on numerous high-profile podcasts such as The Dave Asprey Show, Adam Carolla, and Brad Lee. With a major motion picture about his life on the horizon, Shaheen's current focus is on empowering entrepreneurs, authors, and speakers to leverage the power of podcasting effectively. All right, let's win the day with Shaheen Cheyenne. Shaheen, great to see you.
So great to be on, James. Again, I love your show. I love the energy that you bring. You are the embodiment of what a good podcaster should be.
Well, you bring massive value as a guest. So I always love our conversations and I love to see you. So tell us about podcasting. Why is it such a valuable medium in the world we're in today?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. And this is one of the things we were thinking about years ago. And traditional media has lost its hold. Do you know anybody who's still watching commercials on TV? No. In the current day, we want our content delivered to us specifically tailored to what we want to see in that moment. So you've seen the rise of platforms like TikTok and Instagram, and everybody wants their information custom tailored to them and in the quickest path to getting to the end result. So traditional media is struggling. But what we've seen, especially with the rise of podcasters like Joe Rogan, is that podcasting has become a real force in today's media space. And if you want to be a thought leader, you want to be considered relevant, you better be doing podcasts. And we're seeing more and more A-list celebrities, top stars, people who would have never considered doing a podcast a few years ago, now scrambling to get into the podcast space. And that's what's happening. You know, there's podcast companies now being bought for $1 billion+ dollars. So it's an industry that's on fire. And if you're somebody who wants to increase your income, to sell a high-ticket product or service, I can't think of a more effective, efficient, and impactful way of doing that than being a guest on podcasts.
Agree, 100%. I just cannot even estimate the value that just being a guest as well as a host on podcasting, it's absolutely changed my life. I mean, you have the awareness. Everyone knows what a podcast is now. You got people who've got multiple podcasting apps on their phones, but it's also the accessibility angle. Previously, like you mentioned with the traditional media, if you're watching TV, you're battling through ads, you're sitting there on the couch, whereas the accessibility factor with podcasts, you could be mowing the lawn, you could be in the garden, you could be driving your car, you could be doing anything, and you get access to some of the greatest minds in the world as you go throughout your day.
That's right. So you and me talk often about Professor Cialdini or Cialdini. People always correct me on the spelling of his name. This guy wrote this book called Influence. And in that book, he talks about the elements of influence that are important. And now here's the thing about guesting on podcasts. Me and you can talk about how great we are all day long. And when people see that, they will look at that from the perspective of, he's got something he wants to sell me. He has a vested interest in that. But when I am on your show and you are a thought leader and an authority and you are speaking my praises, you have two of the elements of influence right there: social proof and authority. So you are speaking with authority about me, and that has 100 times, 1,000 times more impact and effectiveness, first and foremost. Secondly, you are correct. People want to get to know you if you have a product or a service that's more than just a commoditized buy. If I'm buying a coffee, cool, right? Let's go to one of the big coffee places. We'll grab a coffee. I'm sure it'll be delicious. We'll be great. But if you are a coach, if you are a consultant, a public speaker, an author, somebody that has a consulting service, a SaaS service, a founder of a company, probably what you have involves a little bit more explanation. Before I'm going to spend thousands of dollars with you, I need to get to know you a little bit. And that's not going to happen with TikTok, right? You're watching a TikTok or an Instagram ad, you click through it and there's a dancing monkey and you're like, you're gone. You've paid for that click, but the customer's gone. With podcasts, they're going to be listening to you, like you said, in the gym, while they're running, while they're taking their kids to soccer. So it is such an impactful way for people to get to know you long form. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because when I listen to people on Joe Rogan or Patrick Bet-David, or when I listen to people on your show in particular, after the show, I'm like, man, I feel like I know this person. And sometimes because me and you have some of the same friends, we go about and I meet these people, I already feel feel like I know them. So that trust is established. And that's nothing you can do on short form media. A 30-second ad, a 60-second ad isn't going to establish trust. It can only, at best, establish brand awareness. But through podcasting, we can do social proof, authority, trust, and really bring it in a strong way.
And if you're an author, a speaker, or an entrepreneur, you understand the value of search engine marketing and search engine optimization. So you want to get traffic back to your website so you can convert those people, obviously, into revenue for your business so you can have the impact that you want to have on the world. To go and guest on dozens or even more than 100 podcast shows like you and I have, it means now that we have backlinks. We have so many different sites that Google recognizes this person as an authority. So you've got all of these different people, influential people in most cases, driving big traffic back to you. And you just rank so much better on Google. So in addition to the relationship that you have with the podcast host and the opportunities that can come from that, having all of that information taken care of for all you need to do is just rock up and talk about what you love. It's such an easy way of being able to grow your personal brand. In fact, I can't think of anything better.
Yeah, so interesting. I had a guy who was a client and he was unsure about how he would see ROI from podcasting. And he had a number of websites and he was kind of trying to figure it out. But one of the things that he was struggling with is SEO, search engine optimization. You know, the most important thing about Google is how am I discoverability. You know, I work a lot with Amazon, so a lot of the work that we do is making sure you show up on that first page, you show up on the first 3 results, 10 results. Otherwise, people won't find you. So one of the things that people don't realize about podcasting, when you do a podcast, you take that transcript. It's very easy. There's a program called Otter AI. There's multiple transcription softwares now, and you extract that transcript. You use ChatGPT to turn it into a blog. You put that blog on the back end of your website for every show that you do. Now everything you said on that show becomes searchable and your SEO goes through the roof. So this guy, we started getting him booked. We got him booked on 10 shows, 20 shows, 100 shows. And all of a sudden, he's got 100 pieces of unique human content. We're in a world of AI, but the search engines like Google and Bing and you name it have become smart to the AI articles that are written. So they have less value to the search engines. But human content, unique human content, which still AI is unable to produce at the quality of a human speaking, is invaluable for your search engine optimization. So that's a hack that anybody could use anytime somebody guests on a podcast or even does their own podcast. Take that transcript, turn it into a beautiful article, make sure there's pictures and videos in there, put that on the back end of your site, and now everything you talked about is searchable. So the next time somebody looks for best podcasting agency in America, they're going to find you.
I wish more people did that rather than being like, hey, I want to get these results. I'm going to go and find a digital agency that's going to charge you 30, 40, 50K for this search engine optimization, and nothing ever changes as a result. It's so frustrating. Tell us a little bit more about your journey, then what inspired you to ultimately start Podcast Cola.
Yeah, so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I created multiple companies in the 1990s, one of which created over $1 billion in revenue. And my goal was, I wrote a book about it during COVID. You know, COVID, we were all locked in. And I was like, no time better than now to write my book. So I wrote the book and I thought, now I got to get it out there. And I noticed this emerging platforms of podcasting. I noticed the emerging art of podcasting taking over. And I thought, wow, how can I get featured on all these podcasts? Because it sounds perfect. I can do them from home. I can talk for an hour about my story and somebody will definitely hear it. And I can get a major motion picture film deal. That was my goal. And some people said, yeah. And other people said, might be able to do it. We know you've done much harder things than this. And so I started doing it myself. I started reaching out to get booked on shows and I got a few shows and then I hired a couple people. And the thing that I learned was that you don't want to be the guy on the block who's selling his own house. You ever see that? You go to a nice neighborhood and there's all these houses represented by Sotheby's and Berkshire, this and that, and they're all being sold. And there's the one guy holding up the for sale sign, grumpy as heck, why his house isn't selling. And it's a similar analogy to podcasting in that if you're serious about your career, you are serious about the impact you want to make in the world and the way that people see you, you don't want to be representing yourself. There's a reason why celebrities, famous people, top speakers, even top politicians have have managers. The reason for this is that this is a reputation business. And we've spent the last 5+ years building our reputation, forging relationships with these shows. So what happened was I started the company with one client, myself, and my wife, who's an amazing publicist and has been doing it forever out in New York, helped me train some higher quality people. And we started forging these relationships. And once she was behind it and the company had a reputation behind it and we had properly trained staff, I started getting hits left and right. And all the greatest shows wanted to have me on. I did over 300 shows. And somewhere in there, I got a major motion picture film deal with a great studio out in New York, Academy Award winning studio, and they're going to produce the film. So that's how we started Podcast Cola. And somewhere along the way, James, people started coming to me going, dude, you are crushing it. Can you do that for me? And I was like, well, maybe. It's really, we've got one client, it's me, but sure, let me try. And so we started doing it for other people and we started hitting it out of the park. We started off with entrepreneurs. So we had this guy, Fred Joyle, who's now a client again. He wrote a book called Super Bold and he started this thing called 1-800-DENTIST. He created over $1 billion in revenue, superstar entrepreneur. Fred came to us wanting to be on podcasts. We got him featured in a month alone when his book dropped on over 75 podcasts. And the impact on his business, the impact on his book becoming a bestseller, the impact that it had on him getting speaking gigs, him getting consulting gigs, him getting flown all over the world to talk about that was unbelievable.
You know, even getting, when you're connected with a podcast host where you can get a copy of the book sent out to them, many publishers are very happy to do that, and just getting them to go and provide a review of that book online is such a simple thing to do. Go to Goodreads, go to Amazon, give the book a 5-star rating and a review if you loved it. Such an easy way of being able to get your reviews up there. Everyone wants to get more than 100 reviews. The easiest way that I know of to do that is to actually have these relationships with podcast hosts who are going to broadcast the rest of your story and your products anyway.
That's right. Your mother can only leave one review, guys.
In fact, it gets declined often, doesn't it, when they know you're part of the family? So she might try. Whether or not Amazon want to publish it is a different question.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, people have to think top of funnel. This is one of the tricks that I tell people all the time. Stop selling. Stop selling. People think they're going to go on these podcasts. They're going to go on great podcasts. Hey, Shaheen, you got me on all these great podcasts. Now I'm going to go sell my service or product. Stop. You want people to come top of funnel. So you go to these podcasts and you just be frigging awesome. We're not going to curse on your show this time because we know what happened last time. So you just go on these shows and you be awesome. You create rapport, but you bring value. And then at the end of the show host will always ask you, how do people get a hold of you? You need something top of funnel. You need a freemium product or service. So something that could go for hundreds of dollars, presumably. We found about $300 is an irresistible offer. So you give them $300 worth of value for free. It could be a video that you make, an online course, a white paper, a book, free 15 minutes consulting, something like that. And you capture that email. What happens? You do 100 shows, 200 shows. At the end of that, you've got a list of thousands of people. So when your product actually drops or when you want to sell it, these people are in your ecosystem. You are selling to friends rather than cold selling to people who don't know you. And that's the difference.
So powerful. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're working with the right people. Who are the right people for Podcast Cola and what type of services do you help them with?
That's a great question. So the right people for Podcast Cola, the right people to hire a podcasting agency are this. I'll tell you what our clients all have in common. The single thing that our clients have in common is they have a high ticket service or product or nonprofit that they're working for, meaning that whatever it is that they're selling or offering, in the case of nonprofits, has to be in the thousands of dollars. Why? Because that's the amount of money that's needed to make something go. If you are just an author and you just have a book, and that's it. We all know how hard it is to make money from books. And while that is admirable, you probably are not going to be the right person to spend money on podcast PR or any kind of PR, as a matter of fact. However, if you are the kind of person who has a consulting service, you're a speaker, you have a high ticket online course where it's thousands of dollars, then there is no better way than to podcast your way to the top and selling those. And in fact, James, to this day, our top top producing revenue producer outside of personal referrals from clients is podcasting, is me doing podcasts, people learning about Podcast Cola and calling us up and being like, hey, this is amazing. I talked to one of your clients and you doubled or tripled their business by getting them on podcasts. Can you do that for me?
Plus how much it upskills your communication ability, I think is fantastic. Like when you get the reps in for being a guest on a podcast, it can take someone who's introverted and shy and doesn't know how to broadcast their message to being a very effective communicator. And I think that's an important skill that you can leverage to the stage and so many other things you're doing.
Yeah, totally. People don't realize this also. Look, the first time you do anything, you are going to be terrible at it. Okay. So you need to have practice. And I tell this to people all the time. You need to practice. And the best way to do it, a lot of agencies bring people in and they give them media training for a couple months while they're collecting the money. We don't believe in any of that. The way we do it is we feel the best way to learn something is to do it. So we bring you in and get you trained while you're doing the shows. So the first one you're going to do isn't going to be as good as you and me 6 months down the line when you've been doing them for that long. I'm sure you remember the first podcast that you did. It probably is nothing like the shows you're doing now.
I don't dare go and look back at it, actually. I never ever want to go back. No one go and look at episode 1 or 2 of the Win the Day podcast. But John Lee Dumas from EO5, he talks about this idea of you have to be the disaster before you can become the master. It's just a matter of getting the reps in. It's so important. So a lot of people, they want to aspire to appear on some of these top shows. You've mentioned a few of them earlier. There's some, podcasting is changing the media landscape and obviously business revenue as a result of that. So how can you promise a spot on some of these prominent platforms?
Yeah. So in order to answer how we can promise a spot on these platforms, I can explain to you a little bit about how Podcast Cola works. So we differ from other agencies. Other agencies will just take your money and they'll start booking you on some shows and that's it. Where we come in is we have an unlimited booking model, which is what most people ask. How do you offer unlimited pitches or unlimited bookings on shows? And the way that we do it is easy. It's through relationships. Now, the relationships are both with you, our clients, and with the shows. So how does it work? Well, we bring you in and we do a full onboarding. A lot of agencies don't realize the importance of the onboarding process. If you don't know your client, how can you sell them? How can you pitch them? And that's our job. So our offices are based here in Los Angeles and our team is spread out worldwide, South and Central America, here in California, as well as in the Middle East now, because there's a lot of spots opening up in the Middle East that have amazing people with degrees in communications and degrees in PR. And we're getting a lot of really, really high quality publicists working on our team right now. So we assign a dedicated publicist to you. That publicist learns everything there is to know about you, your business, your CTA, your call to action, what your product offering is, what your favorite shows are. And then what we do is we build out a beautiful pitch deck. And this pitch deck is our selling tool to get you on. That pitch deck might be multimedia. It might have pictures of you. It might have social proof. It might have authority on there, but it's going to be a beautiful pitch deck. Then what we do is we build out 3 to 5 pitches, sometimes a week, that we design specifically. Like, you are an entrepreneur, but you're also a father. That's 2 things. You're also a man. That's 3 things. You're also into physical fitness and biohacking. That's 4 things. So now we've got 4 things we can book you or pitch you on these shows to. Then your trained publicist, your dedicated publicist, communicates that with you. We get beautiful headshots. And by the way, that's the number one mistake that clients make, is not having amazing headshots, because even in this business, people do judge a book by its cover. So we gather all that stuff and then we pitch, and we pitch as a team. So your publicist, who's dedicated to you, will be the lead, but that person will be talking to our entire team of publicists. And we've got celebrity clients. We've got clients that are leading their field, and sometimes they can't take all the shows that we're getting them. So oftentimes we'll plug in somebody else who might be just starting to get you even better quality shows. And through our relationships and through the algorithms and systems that we've built over these many years, we can guarantee placements on podcasts.
Very rare to see the guarantee attached to those things. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. And for these results that we've spoken about, how much does someone pay? Like, what does it cost for someone to get these results?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for the entire package, normally it's $5,000 a month. And if you know traditional PR, it ranges between $5,000 to $20,000 a month, and there's no guarantees. In fact, we get a lot of people coming to us that have tried traditional publicists, and they're like, man, I dropped 20 grand, 30 grand, and they really didn't get me anything. It's different with us. So So normally our rates are $5,000 a month for full service, but on a year agreement, we've got a new package now that's $1,497 a month. So it's just under $1,500 a month, and it's unlimited pitches. So all you can eat. For most people, you give us your calendar and we will fill it with podcasts to your heart's satisfaction. Now, if you're the kind of person that's launching a product or a service or something with a limited timeline or even a more limited budget, we can custom tailor packages just to you. So I tell people, never let budget be in your way of getting the best possible agency that you can. We like working with cool people. And so if you have a story to tell and you have a budget to do it, let us see if we can tailor something to you.
Speaking of stories, are there any success stories that you're most proud of at Podcast Scholar?
Yeah, so we represent Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Chuck E. Cheese's and Atari. We deal with a lot of high-profile people, and so very excited about Nolan. I mean, he's getting interest like crazy on podcasts right now. But the people that I'm most excited about are the people that are just starting out, and the people who really might be superstars in their own worlds, but nobody knows about them. I tell this to people all the time. If a tree falls in the forest, right, and nobody hears it, does that tree really fall? And in our world, the world of podcasting, the answer is absolutely not. So let's get you seen, let's get you heard. And a lot of the times, hearing from our clients, our entrepreneurs, our writers, our speakers, we've got a guy, Paul Epstein. He's a former NFL exec turned speaker and consultant. And within a month of Paul being with us, he got a speaking gig flown to Los Angeles to speak at USC in front of a bunch of young entrepreneurs, which was amazing to see a direct conversion from podcasts that we've done. We're getting Paul booked left and right. If you look at Fred Joyle, 1-800-DENTIST, guy creates $1 billion in revenue, writes this book, but now he wants to get it out into the world. He wants to get consulting, wants to get speaking. We get him on 75 podcasts in a very short period of time, a month, and then continue to get him on hundreds of podcasts over the course of his career, turning his book into a bestseller and really propelling him into the league of most desired speakers in his particular niche. So the most exciting thing for me is seeing people that are just starting out really make it big through podcasts that we've gotten booked on.
Love it. It's a no-brainer. Well, for someone who's interested in you in Podcast Scholar, where should they go?
So if you're interested in podcasting, what we do is we offer a free 15-minute consultation with me or somebody on my staff. And what we'll do is we'll have a conversation. So you could reach out to us at podcastcola.com and just book a strategy call. And what we'll do is we'll have a call with you and see if it's right for you. We'll look at your call to action. We'll look at your budget. We'll see how we can tactically use podcasting.
Shane, this has been incredible. So much value. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
James, honored to be on. Thanks for having me on, buddy.